Hey guys, welcome to Hands-on UX. They make it, I test it. Today we're looking at the 2020 M1 MacBook Air. Now remember, this is a user experience review, not a technical review. Hence the channel name, Hands-on UX. I won't dive deep into the technical specs, benchmarks, or heavy stress testing. Here in this video, we're going to look at what the average user will experience when owning a 2020 M1 MacBook Air. The categories we're covering today are weight, aesthetics, ports, keyboard, screen size, quality, brightness, speakers, battery life, general performance, and price to value ratio. Let's get right into it, starting with the weight. Yeah, this thing is really light. It clocks in at 2.8 pounds, and I can easily carry this around with me all day. The biggest trouble I've had in the past with laptops is that I didn't want to take them anywhere, which sucks because the point of a laptop is to be portable, on the go, accessible enough to pull it out on the fly and get some work done at school, at a coffee shop, during your commute, or basically anywhere that's not your desk at home. When you have a laptop that weighs in at about 4 to 6 pounds, and you're about to head out the door and you go to pick it up to put it in your bag, and it just feels like a heavy brick, you just let out a sigh and put it right back down on the desk and walk out the door. At least that's what's happened to me countless times. Let me know in the comments if you can relate to this. So yeah, this thing is super light. It's so refreshing when I pick it up and hold it. My peace of mind goes up by like 20%, and my day is so much better for it. I've never owned a MacBook Air before, but I'm gonna say right now is the perfect time to. The MacBook Air has always been very light, but at a significant trade-off. The performance of every model before this one, to put it lightly, it sucks. The performance on this thing is amazing, but more on that later. My point here is that it's very light but also very powerful, so keep that in mind because it's a big reason why this is arguably the best all-around laptop in existence right now. And on top of that, the price is insanely cheap. Next up is aesthetics and build quality. Now, off the bat, I can say this thing looks good. In my opinion, Apple remains the king of aesthetics in the laptop department. Other companies have really struggled with this for as long as laptops have existed, and it's a big reason why Apple has always dominated this market. When you break it down, it's a bit of a fashion thing, a status symbol, that luxury appeal, the sense of pride you get when you buy something that you know looks great, and when you use it in public, everyone immediately recognizes the brand and the product, and they know you have the best in class. It's a very real thing to buy a non-MacBook laptop, either because you prefer Windows, because it's cheaper, or because the specs are more customizable, or whatever other reason you may have. And then you pull it out in public to use it, and all of a sudden, you feel a little more self-aware than usual. You might see other people using MacBooks, and you look at their laptop, then you look back at yours, and you're just like, wow, that looks so much better than what I have. You might even feel ashamed. That's just one of the things that Apple has perfected with their branding and used to leverage their dominance over competitors. My one and only gripe with the aesthetics on this device is the top part of the bezel. It's a little thick and disproportionate to the other edges of the screen, and for the first week or so of using it, it was a bit distracting, honestly. It doesn't really stick out to me as much though now because all the other positives of this device have far outweighed a little nitpick like that. Everything else in the aesthetics department is tip-top. It's super slim and compact. The proportions of the keyboard and the trackpad are great. The color is great too, classic space gray. Who doesn't love that? Now here's a funny story if you want to hear. When I first bought this laptop, I wanted to switch it up color-wise. I took a gamble and went for the gold one. It looked cool in the pictures and I saw it in a few YouTube videos and I thought, this looks nice. I've always owned silver or space gray MacBooks before, let me try something new this time. Yeah, that was a big mistake. When I unboxed it, I was like, this is pink. I kept trying to brush it off and tell myself, no, it's gold. It says it's gold, so it's gold. It looks fine. But no, really, it's more like pink. At most I figured it would be more of a copper tone, which I didn't mind because in the picture it looks more copper than gold. But I even showed a few people, I showed some family and friends, and they all agreed that it looks pink. And yeah, that was it. So I went to the Apple store and I exchanged it for this one. So fair warning, if you aren't particularly looking to buy a pinkish laptop, don't get the copper one. Next up is the ports. Now it's worth noting that the entire laptop industry has in the past few years really stripped down the amount of ports they include in their devices. Apple has notably given a very limited amount of port selection in their devices too. This one is no different. This one has a mere 2 Thunderbolt ports on the left side and 1 microphone jack on the right side. And that's all. It hasn't really been a big hindrance to me yet, but if you really need USB ports, SD card reader, etc., you can buy a dongle. It puts extra work on the user and it isn't great for the user's experience for the sake of convenience, but it will come in handy to buy a dongle off of Amazon if you buy most laptops that are available nowadays. Next up is the keyboard. I love this keyboard, I really do. There's something subtle about it that's just really enjoyable but hard to define. There's not a lot of travel in the keys, but there is some travel. More travel than the older MacBook Airs with the horrible butterfly keyboard that caused all types of issues for users. I can type on this one all day. The size and spacing of the keys are perfect for most people, whether you have large hands or small hands. They really found the sweet spot for this one. My hands are more on the large side, and I've had no issues typing with this. I also like how the keyboard goes nearly from edge to edge. It makes the whole device feel a lot more compact and feels like all of the space is utilized to the maximum. The laptop I owned before this one was a 16-inch 2020 MacBook Pro, and it was a lot bigger and heavier. Still very slim given the size, but as you can see, the keyboard is very centered. That to me feels a little bit off. I like how this one has an edge-to-edge keyboard. It just looks cool in my opinion. There's a lot of comfortability here. I can type on it all day and not get annoyed by the feel of the keys. Next up is screen size, quality, and brightness. This is a 13.3-inch screen. Definitely a downgrade in size from my previous laptop, and let me tell you, it took a minute to get used to this. I purchased this mainly for productivity, and it was a bit of a letdown in that sense because everything felt a little squished together with the small screen size. I can't simultaneously open multiple windows on this one like I did with the last one, so multitasking is just not as good. Over time, I've adapted to it in some ways, not fully, but by modifying my workflow a bit, it's not as frustrating anymore. But if you're really big on screen space and that's just non-negotiable to you, you might want to explore other options. On a side note though, if you have a display that's compatible with AirPlay like my TV is, this could be a massive help when you're home. The vast amounts of extra screen space on a TV just feels great for tasks like video editing, graphic design, and more. If you don't have an AirPlay ready device, a standard wired connection to an external display is always a very practical option. The quality of the screen is great. The colors are very rich and vibrant, and it's the first MacBook Air to get the P3 wide color gamut. That basically means that the colors are really good, like I just said. It also has the famed Retina display, so things look nice and sharp. Not quite as sharp as a 4K display, but I have no complaints with the clarity you get here. If you're curious to know, the native resolution is 2560 by 1600. It also gets really bright. It says it has 400 nits of brightness, but honestly it feels like a lot more. I don't have another laptop here to compare it to, but my previous laptop had 500 nits of brightness, and this one still feels a little bit brighter. I'm not really sure why that is, but it's just my observation. Typically I use it at around 1/3 of the maximum brightness because turning it up all the way often just feels too bright, unless I'm using it outside in the daytime, which just isn't very common. The screen isn't very reflective either, which is another thing to love about it. Even at low brightness, I can clearly see what's on the screen in most practical lighting situations. I also want to note here that it doesn't look super bright here on this video, but that's because the screen light is competing with the studio lights that I have here above it. Next up is the speakers. Now these speakers are great. They're loud and clear. You even get a bit of low end. I would say they sound better than maybe 90% of laptops out there. Laptops in general aren't known for having great speaker quality, so while it may not sound amazing, it's definitely a step up from most. My mic probably won't pick it up very sufficiently, but let's do a quick test of the speakers. Next up is battery life. Now this is one of the main buying points of the laptop, so you want to pay attention to this. The battery life is excellent. I literally charge this thing about once a week. Seriously. Granted, I don't do intensive tasks on it like video editing every day, but if I were using any other laptop, I would still have to charge it at least once a day. I can't stress enough how big of a deal this is. It's literally a game changer that they were able to increase the battery capacity so much on this device. Without getting too technical, we have Apple's new M1 chip to thank for this huge stride forward in battery power. This is perfect for people on the go because you no longer have to deal with lugging around chargers with you. Let's say you're a student who mainly uses your laptop for school. And one day you can use this for all of your classes, and if you want to do some studying after class, you could do that. And let's say you have a YouTube channel on the side and you gotta do some video editing for an hour or two, you can do that as well. And let's say you want to watch a movie, yeah, you can do that too. And at the end of the day, when you get home and check your battery, in a very realistic sense, you'll probably still be at somewhere between 20 and 40%. For me personally, on most days, I'm using it for casual internet browsing, watching YouTube, using iMessage, writing scripts or notes, playing music in the background. With those activities, a couple hours a day, the battery lasts me generally 4 to 5 days, but sometimes I'll quite literally get a full week out of it. Overall, I can't lend enough praise to the battery in this device. Next up is general performance. Hands down, the performance on this is amazing. The age-old question, can I edit 4K? Yes, it can. I strongly believe you could run a whole YouTube channel just off of this laptop, which is pretty much what I'm doing now. If you're doing really high production videos though, with all kinds of special effects, you might require a legit desktop video editing setup. But for most general editing video needs, this thing has you covered. Even with my previous laptop, which was really high spec and costed me over $4,000, it would still freeze up sometimes. It would also get really hot for apparently no reason, no matter what I was doing. I haven't had any freezing issues with this, and it stays cool no matter what I'm doing. Here's a little story about the heating issue that I had on the previous laptop. When I went to sell it, I took it to a pawn shop type of place because they quoted me a decent price online. When I got there, of course, they looked for any reason to give me less money than they quoted, but eventually I got them to agree on paying me a comfortable price. So cool, the deal was on. So we turned it on and went into the recovery menu thing to wipe the drive clean and factory reset the device. And within like 2 minutes of turning it on, the guy starts looking at me funny. He was like, "Is there an issue with your laptop? It's getting really hot." And I told him, "No, it's fine. I've used it very lightly. There's no issues with it at all." But in reality, it was pretty hot and I can't blame him for being concerned. Unfortunately, he ended up backing out of the deal because he thought there was an internal issue with it and it was just too risky of a buy for him. And I had to put in a decent amount of work to eventually sell it online. So yeah, when you compare that to this device, it's worlds apart. It never gets hot, and at most it will get slightly warm when video editing, but that's it, literally. All in all, you won't have any performance issues with this device. Next up is price to value ratio. If you've noticed, everything I said so far about this laptop is just continuous praise. But that's not because I'm like an Apple fanboy or anything. This laptop is really just that amazing. It's near perfect. I like to think that I have pretty fair and realistic opinions on products, which you'll definitely see in my other videos if you enjoy critiques. But there's just really not much bad that I can say about this here. Price to value ratio is also excellent. I bought this laptop for $850. I can't stress how amazing that is. Like seriously, buy this thing right now. The current listing price is $999 on most websites, but if you head over to the Apple certified refurbished website, you can get it for $850. Apple is known for having a great refurbished device program, and most times you'll get a product that's indistinguishable from a new device. It comes packaged nicely. More than likely, there will be very little to no signs of cosmetic wear. No scratches or dents or anything like that. So that's the video, guys. If you enjoyed it, like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. Stay tuned for more.